I'm sitting here and I'm going through some stuff and I was thinking all of the things that I have been through, right? Um, and the fact that I feel like I shouldn't be here, all the trauma and the survival tactics and the hidden presence of God. And, as I'm sitting here thinking about these things, I'm thinking about when you're going through something heavy, right? You start to say, God, where are you? And that's what I was doing today. Like, are you here, God? Do you hear me anymore, God? And you know, I felt like if I come on and I tell my story and things that I've been through, that maybe I can be encouraged because it reminds me of all that God has done for my life. And maybe just maybe somebody else who's listening can also be encouraged. And so I wanted to talk to you, but not as a chef and as a coach and as a speaker and all the things, right? All the titles that we give ourselves, but really as just a woman who has survived hell and has lived to tell the story. You see, I really believe that I shouldn't be here. And I really mean that. The fact that I'm sitting here breathing and speaking to all of you today, to me is a miracle. As I'm sitting here and I was going through, because somebody asked me, when was the last time you read your own book? And I'm like, oh my, I haven't read it since I published it. And so they're like, you should do that. It's a good practice, right? I'm like, really? I don't know. Because I've cried so much writing the book. I didn't know if I want to relive it after I feel like I've healed from it. But as I'm sitting here and I'm breathing through emotions and trying to feel it to heal it type of thing, I realize that maybe it is a good idea to do that so that you can realize all that you've been through and that God hasn't abandoned you just because he hasn't spoken to you or because you haven't heard him today or haven't heard him recently. Right. I mean, when I was a little girl, that's all I did was live in fear. I just lived in so much fear, not the kind of fear that goes away when you turn the lights on either. Right. It's a kind of fear that lives in your bones that no matter what happens, you're always afraid of something, right? If something isn't going your way, you're afraid of everything being taken away from you. If you're afraid of being hurt, you're afraid of somebody hurting you, you're afraid of you're just afraid of all of these things, right? It's that kind of stuff that lives into you because you've been abused and you lived in silence for so long and you feel like you have been forgotten and not looked after. And I learned to survive in that silence. That's why I love cooking. That's why I became a chef, because I can create things out of nothing. I can create things out of things that maybe people would throw away or think is no good or have leftover or whatever. And it's something beautiful about remaking those things. And, when I was 15 and I was having a child, I look at 15-year-olds today and I'm like, how the hell did I do that? I was a child carrying a child at 15 years old, right? I don't even know how I survived that, honestly. I don't even know. I just know that I got up every day and I pressed forward and I took care of this amazing child. That's all I know. And not because I was strong, but because I had to, because I had no choice. Like people, when I go on all these beautiful podcasts, they're always asking me, How did you survive that?" I don't know. I just knew that I had to wake up every day. And I was in a severely violent relationship at the time. I was almost murdered in that relationship, right? I mean, you know, I don't know, right? I don't know. I mean, I know now in hindsight, but at that time, I don't know. And through it all, I mean, I remember being angry with God and not knowing where God was and so separate from him. And, oh, where were you? Now I know where he was. He was there with me. That's how I got through it, because, but God, right? And you do all the things that you do to you learn to survive. And I don't know, how I got through it. I don't know how I was able to maintain myself without unaliving myself, because Lord knows I thought about it very much so often, right? But God was there in the silence, but God was there in the tears, right? In the moments where I was in the hospital, like after being beaten or after my abortions, right? It's in those empty places when I was staying in the battered women's shelter because I needed to survive. And I forgot about what all that felt like, right? And so I was reading just a little excerpt of my book because somebody told me to read it again. And it talks about right here when I was in this abusive relationship with my son's father. And while we were back together, he convinced me that this time is going to be different, right? It was going to be different. So it was for a few months, that honeymoon period where you always are so enjoying yourself and it's amazing. And it gave me hope that this could work, right? That we could really be a family. That even though my mother was constantly trying to convince me that I should get married and I should quit school and I should get a job. I just knew that my gut that this was not a good idea. And then one day, on my last year of high school, I was coming off the bus and there was this nauseating moment right before I got home of not knowing what mood I was going to walk into. And on this particular day, I got home a little late because the bus was late picking us up from school. And there he was, pacing around upstairs in my bedroom. And he said, "Where were you? Why are you late?" I knew something was wrong. So I sent my son downstairs and said, "I was only late because the bus was late picking us up." He said, "No, I bet you were out there sucking someone else." And then he said, "If I can't have you, nobody can have you. I can't take it anymore. I'm going to kill you, then the baby, and then myself." And when he turned around to look at me, his eyes looked black. I've never seen him look at me this way before. I asked, what was he talking about? How can I go out there and do that when I'm only 15 minutes late? What the hell is wrong with you? Then I see it. He takes out the gun, cocked it back, and loaded it. And then he says, "If I can't have you, no one can." Oh, shit. Survival mode kicked in. I said, "Are you kidding me? I don't want to be with anyone else. I love you so much. I would never do that with anyone else. I love you and only you." And I pleaded for my life. I begged. I told him that I loved him, and he was pacing back and forth, and my heart was pounding. I thought, how am I going to get out of this? Then he turns around, walks right up to me, put the guns to my head, and the metal was cold. My body went numb. I closed my eyes, thinking, this is it. He pulls the trigger, and my body shuddered. Then the safety lock got jammed. As I was reading this again, I felt all the feels. I felt everything again. What part of the story? Sorry, my dogs are going to bark. What part of the story are you still trying to survive? Because I want you to know that you're not alone, okay? God is closer than you think. And I didn't know it then, but the pain was a breaking ground, right? This is what I was like looking at. Stop, guys. Stop. Just stop. Go. Go. I will say this. Whatever you're going through, this pain that you're going through is not the end. But God, dot, dot, dot. He will show up for you. It's the soil where purpose begins to grow. So next time you're thinking that this is it, this is the end, I want you to realize that you are not alone and that God is always there. And I want you to look at the part of your story where you thought this was it, this was end, this was all. And I want you to know that you are not alone, that God is closer than you think. So no matter what you're going through right now, And no matter how you're struggling right now, and no matter how you feel like sometimes like you can't even breathe, I didn't know it then. But I know now that no matter all those things I went through are to help me get through a time like this, right? The time where everything is tough right now. So I just want to encourage you. God sees you, especially if you're his child. He has not forgotten you. And if you're still breathing, he's not finished. He's just not finished with you. Okay? So understand that it may not be easy right now, but it is going to be a story that you can tell later. Okay? So I hope that this has touched you. Legend. And I hope that you breathe through this. Okay? Because your pain is not your end. It's the soil and where your purpose is going to start growing. I'm sorry about the dogs, but life is life. I hope this has touched your heart in some way. And if it has, go ahead and drop a heart comment or tell me what you're going through right now that you want me to pray for you for, because I'd love to pray for you. And I know I need prayer. And I'd love for you to pray for me. And I'd love to pray for you because I shouldn't be here, but God. All right, guys. Love you so much. And I'll see you on the next one.